So you're here, I'm here, and we're here with Ryan O'Connor, who's a neuro-optometrist. He's also a contributor to my book, Growth Happens in the Dirt. And Ryan, can you give us a bit of a background on who you are and what you do?
Nice, thanks, Katie. I'm an optometrist, qualified from the University of Auckland, which is the only place in New Zealand that does the Bachelor of Optometry. I graduated class of 2013, and so I've been practicing ever since. To get into optometry, I needed to do an undergrad degree, and as part of that, I'm from Invercargill, so I went back to Otago and did a Bachelor of Science. I continued the biomedical science with a sort of a view of reproduction and development. And the half of that degree entailed genetics, which I wasn't very good at, and the other half entailed anatomy, which I did reasonably well at. So in my third year there, which was really helpful for trying to get into optometry, I got to do a pre-honors paper, and my sort of majors in anatomy were reproduction, cellular, and neuroanatomy. And with that, I did a few neurophysiology and zoology papers, which a lot of them sort of had a big crossover with the visual system because it's such a great system to get feedback. The famous Schrodinger's cats, they have a big model for the way that the visual system wires and fires together to create the visual system. And by blocking out one of the eyes of the cats, the poor cats, they made the visual system just be represented by the eye that got exposed. On the flip side, when they changed those eyes over, they were able to somewhat get some firing back into the visual system and get some representation of the eye that
Oh,
had been covered. And that sort of holds establishment for what we do with people that have eye turns or lazy eyes, to try and get some vision back in that eye, try to establish the periphery and try to integrate the two eyes, and hopefully mean that when they have surgery, that the two eyes integrate and they see straight and stay straight, and hopefully have good vision and integrated vision, and ultimately, hopefully, binocular vision, and see binocular depth perception as well. So that was quite cool. And yeah, as I went in through the optometry degree, the real sort of vision science and neuroscience of optometry was really fascinating. It was one of the one paper I did get an A+ in was in
awesome.
vision science of in neuro vision paper is what it was. And yeah, that was probably partially because I'd done this pathway and the vision pathway in three different things in my undergrad degree and followed through. So the crossover to practice, I guess, comes into, like I said, with amblyopia, where somebody doesn't have the right vision in one of the eyes, and then the way the two eyes work together, so binocular vision. Um, I sort of quite liked that. Quite liked the anatomical thinking about the six different muscles that move the eye, and then through my other side of life as a sports person, sort of soccer and swimming, going through high school and then rugby and rugby sevens while I was at university. I had a real sort of excuse the pun, passion for how can you get performance out of things, and with optometry, you can have that crossover into getting the best possible performance you can, controlling the nervous system, being accurate, um, being able to tolerate stress, being able to get more information whilst you're playing, and also in the case of high velocity sports, hopefully reduce the risk of collisions and concussions.
Wow.
And then for myself, getting a number of concussions,
Mm.
seeing the way that you can help someone recover from a concussion using binocular vision and aligning their vision and aligning their visual system and nervous system, has just sort of all snowballed on itself. So over my 10 years of practicing as an optometrist, it's sort of been an area of subspecialty that I've had an interest in. And yet it has me here today, now finally owning my own practice here in Ashburton, and wanting to develop how I interact with the community. So on the one side, getting referrals from ACC and occupational therapists, who their patients are having problems with their vision, and then on the other side, hoping to get into sports and help, especially things like cricket and rugby and hockey, tennis, golf, how to visualize and focus and basically get to elite performance.
Wow. So for you, when you had your concussion, did it affect your eyes, the way your eyes worked?
Um, in retrospect, I think none of my family are short sighted,
Yeah.
and I had a concussion, my first concussion, when I was about 15. I went up for a header and clashed heads. Went to hospital, had observation, and being a teenager full of testosterone, I think it was pretty much fine by the next day.
Yeah.
Whereas, whereas my younger brother, who was only 12 or 13 when he clashed heads, he about half an hour later vomited all through the bathroom, and
Oh,
I think it took him a good year or so. Again, in retrospect, we didn't know this,
no.
but he's sort of admitted that he maybe had a bit of a tough time as he sort of went from intermediate to high school and didn't really know why. And I look back and my younger brother was part of the reason why I became an optometrist. I saw him get his final eye exam when I was about 12 and he was about 9. And as a kindy kid, he had needed to wear glasses to develop his visual system. And so I do wonder if he does have a little bit of binocular vision dysfunction, and potentially that's why one of my theories of why people take a little bit longer to recover is that the binocular vision system is already slightly poor,
Mm,
and the interruption of a concussion highlights the fact that the two eyes don't work really well together. And in extreme cases, that's when someone ends up with this big consistent double vision. So I think that plays a part. But for me, I ended up being short sighted, and I think it was because the concussion would have disrupted my ability to focus. I was at
mm,
NCEA. Again, in retrospect, I had a bit of a rough schooling year. That next year was a bit disinterested, but sort of out of the loop. Didn't do as well as I should have, and I look back on that and think, yeah, maybe I was having trouble focusing on the page in front of me, but also focusing on being in class and stuff like that.
mm,
15 and 16, although girls became pretty distracting as well. So,
mm.
but as we all know, the old inhibitions go a bit when you have a concussion. So
Yeah.
it's probably all tied in. And yeah, so I think that lack of being able to focus on the page caused some eye growth with me to compensate, and thus made me short sighted. And again, a couple more concussions. I had another one in my first year down in Dunedin, and again, I had another jump up in my prescription. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was one of the drivers to why I became short sighted and then stabilized and then more short sighted again after that. Um, and yeah, like I say, all those other influences that concussion has for you. Um,
Yeah.
but then by the time I had a major concussion in 2017, um, I had the knowledge that visual training and nutrition were hugely important for concussion. And I was already sort of doing low carbohydrate ketogenic diets at that time, taking fish oil, taking ketone supplements. I was part of developing a behavioral vision protocol for us at work, so we had all the tools of flippers and prisms and
Wow.
Brock strings and the knowledge to sort of track my thumb and move it all around and be aware of my breath and be aware of my focus. And so yeah, I think whilst it was a pretty major concussion, at the time, Waikato had a return to play protocol for everybody. So you got what was called a blue card. You needed to see a GP. You went and did a SCAT5 test straight away. I managed to pass it, ironically, but
Wow.
when I said to the doctor, I said, "No, that was definitely bad. My whole world had flipped 180 degrees. I had aphasia. I couldn't text. I was having to like physically move my arms to wash myself in the shower. I after going to the doctor, we were going up to Auckland, and I in between having the concussion, being at home and packing my gear, I said to my partner at the time, I need to get my toilet bag like 4 times. She was like, Ryan, you've got your toilet bag. It's all right. So
Wow.
it was one of those like scary moments where you're aware that you're not in a good space, but you're also going through it. It was quite
Yeah.
an outer experience, like observing myself, like just failing at simple tasks. So it was bizarre.
Yeah. I feel you. Mm, mm. So with your you had the knowledge of optometry with that concussion, did you, for the rehab you were saying?
Yeah, so I was what was I? Yeah, about 4 years in practice. And the practice I was in the Waikato, Patterson Byrne, David Byrne, who was one of the directors there, myself, who had been there a year and a half, and then Kim Stedman, who had been there, I think, 5 years. Kim's since gone on to work down in Christchurch with Estes and Associates, who are a big major behavioural optometry practice in Christchurch. They're heavily involved with what's called school vision, so helping kids with learning difficulties. They do early screening and tinting in a lot of their products, and then they've been the key go-to for concussion recovery. Even in the fact with Ashburton, plenty of people have had been in the past driving up to, to Christchurch to have their sort of rehab planned out from the vision perspective. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we were organising a behavioural program. One of our team was learning the behavioural therapist course, so it was a really cool thing. And we looked at all the testing and what was going to be the most efficient, so that we could refer into this person that had done the behavioural therapist, and we could write the programs, and then she could facilitate the programs. And so it's just how a behavioural program works really well is when the optometrist can diagnose and plan, and then you can have someone assisting to facilitate, because visual recovery is very intensive. It needs to be guided. There needs to be somebody providing feedback. And in an optometry practice, that's not always efficient for the optometrist to be doing that. So that's one of the challenges I have to explore with developing a behavioural program when it's just myself and three staff. But yeah, it's I wrote a report for a patient to the high school here, and the sort of counsellor at the high school in Ashburton was really impressed. So that's what I sort of said to her. I was like, we can absolutely come up with a plan. We can come up with a diagnosis. And if we find that there's a lot of people that need that resource, and we can save them driving to Christchurch, then we could probably do something to develop some visual training and visual therapy in house or as a group or something like that. Yeah.
Because how common when you talk about those learning difficulties, and I mean, we know about concussion because we've been through it, right? When you're on
Yeah.
the other
Yeah.
side, you know what you know. But when you look at it, the people that you've seen and in the industry, how much of those learning difficulties come from either a concussion or just the fact that their eyes aren't working properly? Is it a big part?
Yeah. And like the sad part is that I think people don't realize that binocular vision dysfunction is a risk for concussion. And then if you've got
Ah,
binocular vision dysfunction and you have a concussion, then you're more likely to be symptomatic and you're more likely to have a longer road to recovery.
right. So if you
Um,
guys just unpack that for
yeah,
me.
yeah,
So binocular vision is just the two eyes working together properly?
yeah. And
Uh,
like the neuroscience of this is quite complex. I was between the two spheres last year of concussion and binocular vision, and I was trying to sort of fuse the two together. And so, how your brain is trying to run two path, or not trying, is running two pathways at the same time. So if you think about your central detailed vision, is this small part in the middle of your eye, the two macula, which give you all the detail, and that takes up a big chunk of your visual cortex at the very back. And then the rest of the visual cortex, and then what gets promoted up to a lot of the higher brain function, and especially connected to the brain stem. So sort of like your automatic processor, your brain
mm,
stem. That's where your reptile brain is, the reflexes.
mm.
That is all basically running your position in the world. So you got your detail, which is like face, words, letters, you know, doing sewing, all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff, and
Going.
then yeah, yeah, about
Going.
hanging out in Ashburn too long. Yeah, even Topol was a bit like that too. Was like, what do you like to do? And he's like, oh, a bit of sewing, yeah, um,
Bit of craft.
yeah, crafting, and yeah, so you're running that. That's what you're looking at, And in the background, your peripheral vision and your higher brain function is basically mapping the world. It's mapping the world in both eyes,
Mm.
and proper visual development, that map aligns perfectly point to point, and the two eyes move together really nicely. And that peripheral vision is actually predicting where you want to move your eyes to before you move your eyes. So it's
Right.
like the speed of it is unreal, and like your eyes know that they're going to move before you know it's going to move type thing. It's bizarre, and things like sounds and proprioception. So like if you got like wind on the side of the cheek, your peripheral vision's already decided that you're going to move your eyes to the right before you move your eyes to the right because of that.
Wow.
Or like a sound goes out there, it knows that it's going to move to the side. So a way when we test this, and again, you probably may remember this, Katie, when
Mm.
the optometrist sort of held up two targets not too far apart and wanted to see you jump from side to side with that.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
called a saccade.
Horrible. Horrible.
Yeah, and
Made me
so
feel
when
sick.
yeah, and of course when you after a concussion, those eye movements can be like completely too far, and then you've got to try and find your way back, or it kind of gets over there, sort of, and then it'll do what's called a smooth pursuit. It'll move into the point where it wants to go, or other people just kind of go up and down and all
Mm,
over
mm,
the
mm.
place. So what's really cool now is these really good eye tracking softwares that can look at both eyes and see where they go, and really show up that well these two aren't working together very well. Um, and one of the concussion tests is called the King Devic test, and it's basically reading four lines of numbers horizontally. And the good thing for like team sports or whatever is hopefully everyone's done it, been timed a few times, and hopefully the team are competitive about it, and they've all given it their best shot, and we've got a baseline. And should someone have a suspected concussion, they go and read the King Devic numbers. And if they're slower or making mistakes, then you know that they've probably had a concussion because the eyes can't track. That shake of the skull has meant that the brainstem, the movement pathways of the eyes are broken down, and you're not accurately able to track. So, yeah, what was it? What was it? Where did we get started there? But yeah, it's
Just
hard.
about that binocular, about that
Binocular vision.
vision. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if your two eyes aren't working together to begin with, then like you see in a concussion, you can't track. And so
Mm,
if you're spending all your time trying to focus on moving the eyes through the page, then you're not thinking about reading the words. So then you're going to be slower to be able to learn to read. Um, and
yeah.
that's usually where we'll get a referral from primary school. Is that often little Johnny, not Jill, little Johnny is often having a hard time picking up reading, and we'll
Mm,
often find that eye movement is not there. And then you get into the, is it ADHD or is it
mm,
the nervous system wanting or putting that child under stress, and that's causing them to not have good attention and not be able
mm,
to read. And is it the eye movements that are meaning that their balance is off, their tracking is off, their fusion is off, and therefore it becomes a stressful situation, and therefore they want to get out of that situation, so then they act out and lose attention and all those things. So
mm,
yeah, behavioral optometry is a bit of a can of worms, and there's a lot of forces at play that want to claim the diagnosis. And I
mm.
and I and I think behavioral optometry is part of the diagnosis and part of the underlying causes. Um, but at the same time, a bit like with concussion, the vision and the vision outcomes and the vision symptoms are part of the solution, but they are not going to fix the concussion. And the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
and the
yeah.
same thing, the visual system is influenced from the concussion, but there's also the nervous system. There's also the vestibular system, your ears in balance,
Mm,
um, and there's also your nutritional system that are at play. And a set of glasses is probably like crutches.
Mm.
for the visual system, but it's not physiotherapy. It's not yoga. It's not
Mm.
it's not proper nutrition. And yeah, I think one of the hard things with especially with concussion, and again with behavioral learning, is that we want to. I think you and I spoke about this either in the podcast or after the podcast. When we are hurt or injured or inhibited or blocked by something, we want that thing to fix us.
Yeah,
And
you want the thing.
that thing, yeah, and it's that hard balance as the practitioner say, I can help you, but I can't fix you, and and
Mm.
and I think if us as patients can be aware that we're not broken, we're just healing is probably one of the messages that I'd like to people to take out. In vision and vision training and vision tools can help ease the burden on you and help you to heal.
Mm, mm. Yeah, because that's what I've seen more and more, like especially in the ADHD community, and I'm being prepared to offend some people. But what I've seen is people go on to the medication
Mm-hmm.
and they're still not fixed, and there's kind of this anger, you know, that I've gone on to the medication and it doesn't work, or people, they won't get given a diagnosis, so they can't get the medication. And it's the same patterning. And I had a client say to me, Ryan, she's from the States and she had concussion. And she said, I didn't realize that my healing would be across every single area of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, because when you have, I mean, it's like a lot of mental health stuff, but particularly with concussion, you've got the eyes, like you said, you've got the nutrition, you've got your relationships, like it just seeps into everything, eh?
Absolutely. Yeah. And with behavior optometry, like we said, there, for example, the little Johnny 6 or 7 year old boy, um, it's so much. It's like sort of the socioeconomics of it. It's the learning environment of it. It's the what have they done leading into it? Are they a kindy person or are they a outdoors person? And they're all of a sudden in a room,
Yeah, having to sit on the mat.
having to sit on the mat. You know,
Yeah.
there's what is that? Anthropology? Yeah, like
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
yeah. Um, it's interesting. I think concussion highlights the nervous system really well. Like it basically cuts off your parasympathetic tone, and you're just stuck in this like ramped up state.
Mhm.
And I find that in the young, early primary school boys, and then the mid teenage girls, it's that nervous system absolutely cranked up, like they're in a fearful state for some reason. Um, and it's very similar in the symptomology. They can't focus or they can't accurately point their eyes, and the whole interaction between their nervous system and their vision system is broken down. And it's the
Mhm.
same with concussion and the vision system. Is your nervous system is not allowing you to accurately do these things, and so part of visual training is, especially when you start off, something that we used to do at this practice in Hamilton is do a body scan to begin with. Have the child lie on the ground, and just sort of like think about, for example, their right hand, their right foot, their left hand, their left foot. There's lots of physiotherapy and occupational therapy drills of body tapping, and especially across your midline. So, like taking your right hand and tapping your left shoulder, you know,
Mhm.
and you need the balance, but sort of getting your left hand and tapping it on the your right heel. So you got to like lift your foot up, and so maybe when you're starting off with a concussion, you're doing that in a chair, so that you can just sort of get a little bit of body movement and body awareness going, and that real concentrated concentration about what you're doing helps to bring down that nervous tone, and
Mhm.
then you can work better. It's the same when more so in the vision problems rather than the concussion problems, but pencil push-ups or trying to see how far somebody can fuse their eyes. Um,
Mm,
Often you'll see that those children in quite a tense state, and they'll retract, or their eyes will divert, and they will have
mm,
been holding their breath. And I'll get them to do those big calming breaths, whether it's the like physiological sigh, or
mm.
just can you let out some breath and just breathe, and then you'll watch their nervous system change, and they'll be able to follow, if not all the way in,
Wow.
but a lot closer. And so that's again something with concussion. You'll get that big retraction when you try to bring something close to someone's space. It's that sympathetic nervous system saying, like, get out of my space.
Mm,
Not surprisingly, you've been hit to the head. But again, trying to communicate safety, communicate calmness, and change the physiology so that they can allow that, then they're actually capable of it. And that's part of training is to kind of like push to the edge of the boundary,
mm.
keep it safe, don't create pain, don't create dizziness and trouble, and sort of extend the level of comfort so that you can build back that resiliency when you're in your normal life.
Why does it make you feel sick, Ryan, with your eyes? I'm
Yeah,
intrigued. Why does it make you feel so sick?
because it's connected to your vestibular system,
Mm,
um, and the two aren't working together very well. And
mm.
so it's much like car sickness. And
Yeah,
and again, back to my younger brother, very prone to car sickness.
yeah.
Yeah, the if you've got binocular vision dysfunction, then you're going to be more prone to car sickness. I put it up on our Instagram page yesterday. I'll have to send it to
Yeah.
you,
Send
Katie.
me all the stuff and I'll pop it
Yeah,
in the show notes.
there's a guy in the States. I think his name's David, but his page is Vivid Optometry, and David's has a restriction of his superior oblique muscle, which is primarily responsible for bringing the eye down and pulling it out. And I see this all the time, that muscle's a little bit restricted. David's is reasonably restricted, if not sort of inhibited. And he, when his whole life, just with regular, I know he had perfect vision, so not even getting glasses, but going to optometrist, being like, I keep getting dizzy. I'm really quite a klutz.
Mm,
And he sort of, through doing optometry, I guess, self-diagnosed himself what prisms he needed, and so he wears zero powered prism glasses, and he
mm,
had a picture of him driving the other day without his glasses on and with his glasses on, and one's on top and one's on the bottom. And the bottom one is him without his glasses on, and you're watching his head just like bobble around
wow.
as he's driving the car, because his eyes keep like pulling out and down one way and up and out on the other one. They just keep going in and out, in and out, in and out, and his ears are trying to compensate for this movement of his eyes, and then his neck and head muscles move from his eyes. So he gets like terrible headaches across the top of his head and in the back of his neck, and
Mm,
gets the tension in his shoulders and stuff without these prisms. But he feels amazing without it, and same for the he couldn't really balance on a Swiss ball or whatever. With his prism glasses on, he can have a VR headset on and be on a balance board doing boxing games in the VR
wow.
headset. And it's just like, oh, couldn't even dream of doing that before. I was such a klutz, and even just like walking down a hallway, veers off to one side and stuff. But when he's walking with the prisms, and he can walk straight and up, and yeah, it's quite fascinating to watch how much of a postural change he gets out of these prisms.
Mm,
And it's the same when I just give that little tweak of the small restrictions, and even with the larger prescriptions, how much of a difference it can make.
mm,
Um, where it can fall down a little bit is when people start losing their focusing of their eyes, and they need a progressive lens. A lot of people, because you've got this more out as you look down, it means that the progressive lens is harder to go in, and then the eyes sort of get distracted. Um,
mm.
and back to ADHD, this, I don't know, have you seen the online test? And it's like, look at the light in the middle, and then there's colored lights around the outside, and you kind of make them disappear.
No, I haven't seen that one.
For you probably wouldn't make them disappear because your eyes will keep darting off to the lights. but that's
I always look like I've stolen something. Like my eyes are like back and forth the whole time.
yeah. But again, that's these either the eyes moving apart from each other and catching something else,
Mm.
or those peripheral pathways not lining up, and so then one eye wants to take a turn, the other eye takes a turn, the one eye takes a turn, the other eye takes a
Yeah,
turn, the
yeah,
one eye,
yeah. Let me.
yeah. And so, can you understand how that might be exhausting?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And
I
so
used to, when I had conversations with people, I mean, like I'm a lot better now. I think I'm a lot calmer, but I used to have to concentrate really hard to keep my eyes still.
yeah,
And then I'd end up staring at people. And I've had people say to me before, it's really uncomfortable. I was just like, I'm just trying to keep my eyes still.
yeah, yeah. No, the more I read, the more I sort of understand, and then the more you sort of go, well, what can I do about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the journey I'm on at the moment is to try and sort of explain it, and then also not have it as the panacea, because then you run into trouble that go, well, my glasses don't work, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
they work for this part. What you're describing to me is everything else.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, but your glasses are supposed to fix me. Now they're helping, and then
Yeah.
yeah, and
It's one part. It's one part of the journey, eh?
yeah, yeah, and it's like it's important, but it's not sufficient. Is I think the term.
Mm,
Yeah, um, it
mm.
you by fixing this, you're able to fix the whole picture. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, but I reckon it's so intriguing. Like even what you were saying about sport, about high level sports performance, like if you can get the eyes working properly, it is actually a really big part, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, and like so what I'm sort of following at the moment is a guy in Australia that does this course called neurobatting, and I'm also good friends with Nigel Beach up in Tauranga, who works with breath control and nervous system control. He's off in Las Vegas at the moment with the Jillaroos, and that again, it's like the really awesome tool, and then there's the visual part over here that might again help 1% when it comes to high performance.
Mm,
But if you've got a defect, then that's always going to show up.
yeah,
And so, but the whole idea of all these sort of modalities is to have better control over your nervous system, so that you're more accurate, so that you have better performance, so that you have more time.
mm,
Um, Golf is the obvious example. Like if anyone's tried to hit a golf ball,
mm.
you know,
I've smashed a few clubs in my time, right?
yeah, exactly, and that doesn't help.
No, but it feels better. And
Yeah,
then
it
you
feels
won't get
better.
us to play again.
But that's like the extreme example of trying to find perfection, and the moment your nervous system goes off and causes that little 5-degree twink in your wrist because you're tensing too tight, you're
Yeah.
gritting too much, you've moved your balance, then the ball goes not where you want it to go. um
Mm-hmm.
in a team sport, you've got the team surrounding you, but someone passes you the ball when you didn't expect it, and you snap at it, and you miss it, and you drop the ball, and they pick it up and score down the other end. You feel pretty rubbish, and you might not get selected next week, type thing.
Yeah.
And but if you have a binocular vision problem, rugby is easier because the ball's nice and big. But if you're trying to play tennis or squash, and
Mm,
you think the ball is one place, but actually it's not, and you keep missing it or hitting the racket towards the rim of the racket rather than the middle of the racket, and you're not quite hitting it properly, then it's a very hard game to play.
yeah.
There's the same with softball and cricket. Trying to make that catch of a very fast, rather small ball, you might miss it and not catch it as well as you think. So if you
Mm,
can fix your visual problems, then you're going to be accurate, then you're going to be confident, then you're going to do things well more often, and then you're going to be in more of a flow state. Then you can be controlling of your breath and being in a more flow state,
mm,
and hopefully you're winning Olympic gold.
yeah, yeah. So for like I guess for people watching and they may not have had a concussion, right?
Yeah.
But so what sort of symptoms would people have to know that their binocular vision isn't working properly? How
Yeah.
do you know?
Light sensitivity would be one. Um, Losing your place when you're reading would be one. As I talked about, slow to develop in terms of learning reading and writing, or less writing but more reading. Um,
Mm,
Especially if they pick up maths really well. Obviously, there's a big crossover with those symptoms and dyslexia. Um,
mm, mm,
but again, dyslexia and binocular vision problems are really, really hard. But
mm,
um, at least if you know, with if it's solely dyslexia, you can use the other tools to solve that. But to be able to glance at something, if you can't fixate or focus, then that's going to be extremely hard. So, um, yeah, dizziness, car sickness is probably something to have a think about, because that is a sign that your visual system and your vestibular system, your balance system, are not getting along that well. And the moment you
Is
speed
it
things up,
perceived seasickness as well, or is it different?
seasickness,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, it's
same thing.
but seasickness, it's, especially if
Yeah.
you've got to really go in. That's the, lots of people suffer from that. So
Yeah.
I guess that's how someone could relate what it would be like to have binocular vision
Mm.
problems. Is like when you go on a boat and it's a bit rough. That's what it's
Yeah,
like to have
yeah.
binocular vision problems, because your balance system and your visual system are out of whack all the time.
Mm.
Yeah,
This is what we were looking at taking the kids to the Gold Coast on holiday.
yeah,
And my daughter, she's a bit of an action, an action freak. We were looking at the different rides
yeah, yeah.
in the parks, and I was like, "Nah, not doing that one. Not doing that one." There was a carousel. I was like, "I might do that one," but it's just like I mean, I've been like that since I was small. But actually, going on rides like roller coasters and stuff, they make me heave.
Mm-hmm.
Would
Yeah.
that be binocular vision as well, or is that just velocity?
Like it again. It doesn't help you.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Um, if someone's got binocular vision dysfunction, they'll have a very hard time in a roller coaster.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so with the spinning ones, you know how when people get off, they can't like fixate; their eyes keep moving.
Yeah.
So what that is the balance system driving the visual system,
Mm.
and so in a yeah, a car ride, and then more so on a boat, and then even more so on a roller coaster, particularly one that's quite violent, side to side, up and down, round and round.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's those two things fighting each other, and it not making any sense in your brain, just giving that vagus nerve the let's let's uh let's get rid of whatever's in the stomach, because things aren't going well right now. Yeah.
Because that's why ballet dancers learn how to spot, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And I do wonder if that's a limiting factor on good ballerinas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, if you can't spot, then you can't do all the spins, and you can't be a good ballerina, can you?
No, well, no. We learned it when I was at drama school. We had she'd been a professional ballerina, and this old woman that taught us, and she was trying to teach us how to spot, and I could never do it. I'd get to like three turns,
Mm,
and then you'd just find that the spot started nudging. But
mm,
yeah, it would be a major factor for dancers if they couldn't focus their eyes.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. With you, Katie, like it got better as you went along, right? Like I think when we spoke last year, you barely wore your glasses anymore, which is cool. But you, am I right that your tint became less and less a couple of times?
No, I've still got, I have to go back and get retested because I've noticed, Ryan, that my parking is getting worse.
Yeah.
Like literally in the last couple of months, I go into my park and my bum is sticking out like on a right angle, so I have
Mm.
to reverse back. The kids think it's hilarious. But whether it's that the prism, I don't have the prism in my sunglasses, but I've got it in my glasses, so I have to go
Mm.
and get it checked.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that could be a factor again, and that misalignment and the picking of which eye you're parking with, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
and then on the other side of the car you're using the other eye, and then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
that side doesn't line up with that side.
The times I've had to apologize to my neighbor in the supermarket. Like I'm really sorry.
Yeah,
But even saying that, Ron, like I used to be really militant with the saccades and
yeah.
actually doing the eye exercises, and I haven't been.
Mm, mm.
I haven't
Yeah,
been.
I guess those things are that the training is to sort of put more fuel in your tank, so
Yeah.
that you've got that more and more capacity, so that becomes less and less of a distraction. You get less and less um, dissociation of the two eyes, or when it comes to focus, you have more capacity than you need to. So when
Mm,
you're focusing at a page that's 33 centimeters away, you've got at least 6 units, and you only need to use 3 units. And a bit like back to my young people, they should have like 15, 16, plenty of focusing in their
yeah.
eyes. But we see kids come in and they've only got the 3 units, and it's like,
Oh,
yeah, that's going to be a long day at school when when you're trying to focus it. And younger people probably like 28 centimeters away. They're
yeah.
using
And you can see why
all.
these kids misbehave, right?
That's right. They're using all they've got, and so it's not a fun time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
And
what sort of exercises can, I guess, what do you recommend as an optometrist? What do you recommend if someone's listening and they're like, yeah, I'm off balance, so I can't hit the tennis ball very
mm,
well. What do you recommend?
you probably do need to make sure that your eyes are aligned, and it might take a prism for them to be aligned. But if it's that you've got low capacity or low fuel in the tank to hold your eyes together, or have your eyes straight when they're looking fast, so they might wander apart, or they might actually converge a little bit, so you think everything's closer than it actually is all the time. Then you can build your reserves. So that's when what we're talking about with prisms. You can get prism flippers, so you can
Mm,
get flippers that move the image in for you, and that's quite nice and relaxing.
mm.
um,
That's
and
a leg in the person's glasses, you mean?
Yeah, or what's called a flipper. So it's like a
Okay.
handheld thing that they jump back and forth.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
It's a training tool, is it?
training tool. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. So you can you can do eye press ups basically.
Yeah.
Move the eyes in and out,
Mm,
or you can do that with focus as well, to sort of try and train the eyes to either relax or to focus further than they need to, so that then they can work at that nice middle ground, and feel nice and relaxed and comfortable, have plenty of fuel in the tank. So
mm,
if you don't have access to a behavior optometrist, that drill that I gave to you to put in the book of at the start of the episode, I talked about a Brock string, which is a big long
yes.
string with beads on it that you tie to a door handle. You hold that on your nose and you look down the length of the string at a bead. Try bring that bead as close as it possibly can go, so that you get almost like you'll see an X crossing hopefully through the middle of the bead. If you find that it becomes a line along the bead, and it'll be whichever eye is focusing. So if it's your right eye, it'll sort of come from your right eye off to the left, or if it's your left eye, it'll come from your left eye off to your right.
Mm,
Means that your other eye is gone AWOL.
yeah.
And so then that's when you'd push that bead back again till you get the crossing over of the string through the
Okay.
bead.
So you just have one bead, not the beads all the way up.
Yeah, so that's the first training
Okay.
part is bringing that front bead as close as you can,
Yeah.
and then pushing it back away, and then like what you said, go back a little bit further than what you can get as close as you possibly can, and then bring that second bead forward, and then you'll
Okay.
have um, the front bead a little bit further back than the capacity, another bead that's sort of further away, and then you'll have the third bead near the end of the string, and that's where you do those jumps. So you jump into the middle, or starting from the furthest bead to the middle bead, back to the front bead, and hopefully again you've still got that X, back
Mm.
to the middle bead, back to the front bead, back to the middle bead, back to the back bead. You're just sort of trying to jump it. And then you might also find that with more control of doing that drill, you can bring that front bead closer. You can also try and sort of walk your eyes along the string as though there's a little bug walking along
Mm-hmm.
between the beads. And that's what you can do on a pretty simple level with not much resource. Or I think what I said for the book is the modified version of that, which is literally looking at your fingerprint. How close can you bring it while still having the fingerprint in focus, and then bringing your second finger in behind it, maybe about 20 centimeters between them, and jump between the fingerprints. So looking at your front fingerprint nice and clear to the back fingerprint nice and
Oh my
clear.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to
If
do
you're
some homework.
if you're older than 45, that might be a little bit challenging,
Yeah.
because
Oh,
you'll
ageist.
yeah. I didn't make the crystalline lens. That's because the crystalline lens loses its flexibility at about 45.
What is that?
Um, yeah, and
Can't you
well,
take some gelatin or something? Isn't
it's
there a hack?
it's always losing its flexibility. It's
Of
just
it?
that about 45 is when it's that capacity of the eye starts being a bit hard for that 30 centimeters away. You've only got about 6 units left. And so that's why people tend to push things a little bit further away when they get that age, or they start wearing a reading help.
Yeah, it's all downhill after 45, isn't it? Eh?
Oh, not really. No, no. On your query about the gelatin, um, being healthy will hopefully, and that's a loaded term, isn't it? Being healthy,
Yeah.
but yeah, not oxidizing your body, I guess, might be a nicer way to put it. Should mean that you have more flexibility for longer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it will lose its flexibility. The little channels that allow fluid to flow through the lens degrade over time. The lens also fills up with more cells, and those cells are there your whole life until you get cataract surgery. And so it's less bouncy, and so it doesn't flex
Wow.
it doesn't reflex as
Mm.
much when the tension goes off the lens.
So
So
even if you're doing keto and you're pushing weights and
yeah,
doesn't
nah,
help.
and it doesn't not help, but it
Yeah.
still is. It's still gonna not flex. Yeah, with time. So yeah, um,
Yeah.
that's the other thing about doing eye exercises, and why a eye exam can be quite helpful is getting the right focuses to be able to do these things, because
Mm.
you want that focus to be right, so that part of the visual system is taken care of, so that you can be working on the movement system as well, and vice versa. You want movements to be right, so that's where relieving prisms can come in, so that you can work on the focusing, because the two of those interact with one another.
Do you reckon, I mean, I know that there's a whole lot of things that are going on as we age, but how the elderly have a lot of falls.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's why it's so important to get your eyes checked? But is that a part of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, cataracts will form usually slightly more in one eye than the other.
Yeah.
Um, you can get quite woo about that, which eye it is, and which side of your chakras and things it comes
Oh,
from. But
really? Really?
well,
There's woo-woo on it.
oh yeah, it's down the realms of iridology. I know nothing about
Oh
iridology,
yeah,
but
I know some stuff about iridology.
yes, you can find links to organs and all that sort of stuff
Yeah, 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 yeah.
we are all interconnected. It's just again, you don't want to completely disregard it, but from a general sense, it's hard to prove.
Mm,
But yeah, there's no doubt an association with so many things, and how your life develops and how it's all expressed. And because like I just said, the two lenses in your eye are the same age, yet we
mm.
often see one cataract form earlier than the other. So what's that all about? Um,
Wow, woo-woo.
yeah, and
That's
the same
woo-woo.
same with macular degeneration. Both retinas are getting like half your blood supply through them every 40 minutes, yet you've got more macular degeneration in one eye than the other. What's with that? Um,
Mm.
But yeah, so that again creates dissociation between the two eyes, getting slightly different information. If one eye's got more glaucoma than one than the other, then the message is a bit slower in one eye than the other. So that's again creating dissociation. Interestingly, one cataract done reduces the risk of falls like hugely, and then
Wow.
the second cataract done continues to reduce the risk of falls. So
Mm.
that's for all the people that hold health insurance and think, oh no, I don't want to use it yet. Do get your cataracts done. Another piece of motivation to get your cataracts done would be that it reduces the risk of Alzheimer's and dementia.
Why?
So it's a bit like hearing aids.
Yeah.
So you are reducing the neural input, and your eyes are, some would say like 80% of information comes through the eyes, and if you're
Wow.
blocking that out or reducing that, then you're getting less firing in the brain. It's a bit like the visual system. You put a hearing aid in somebody, they're going to reduce the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. So
Wow,
that's
that's incredible.
yeah. So that's again something, and a bit like if you lose your hearing, if you lose your vision, then you withdraw. If you can no longer hold a driver's license, then you withdraw.
Mm.
And then yeah, your mortality increases. You're less inclined to get up and be physical because you're scared of falling. But then
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the lack of muscle tone, the massive lack of physical movement increases the risk of falling. So um, yeah, and again, just like vitality and confidence, it increases the risk of falling. And so if you're seeing like you were when you were 20, how do you
Mm.
feel?
Yeah.
you know, if I
I
fall,
don't know. I drank quite a lot in my 20s, so I probably saw a lot worse than I do now.
I was about to say there's a Lee Hart skit where he's a drunk pilot and one of his terms lines is my eyes are bleeding. I can't see you. we're not flying this plane is what he says. So yeah, not that part of your 20s.
Yeah. The censored part.
Yeah. But like, just put yourselves in the shoes of a 70-year-old who's seeing 2020 in both eyes and their friends coming to them saying about how their driver's license is at risk. But
Mm.
they've got that vitality of no, I can see wonderfully. Um,
Yeah.
and all I need is my reading glasses. Some of them don't even need their reading glasses.
Mm.
It's like, it's not good for my business, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
no, it's great to have that conversation with someone and say, well, have you thought about having cataract surgery? And they're like, well, what would it mean? And you're like, what would it mean all this? And they just go, oh my God, I've been tied to these frames for the last 20, 25 years. And you're saying I can do most things now without them? Like,
Wow.
and
Yeah,
I'm going to see better than this.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's the really interesting thing with health in general. Like I know in New Zealand anyway, like I've spoken to my parents who they're elderly, but they've got friends who have been holding off on cataract surgery or they're on the public waiting list,
Mm,
like because they don't want to pay, even if they'll have savings there, they don't want to have to pay for it. So
yeah.
they sit and they live with it. But if you look at the quality of life on the other side of just paying for the thing,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's again like the savings on the other side, the amount of people that did hold health insurance and either their company paid for it and then they paid and they're, oh no, I won't pay for that anymore. But then they have put money aside, but then it's like that little nest egg, the savers and the spenders, It's like, oh, do I really want to part with $5,000? Like I've worked really hard for
yeah,
this $5,000.
yeah,
but it's exactly that. Like if you could excuse the pun, help them see the other side. Like, remember
yeah,
what it was like to see.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's
Oh,
interesting just what you were saying when I reflect on my concussion journey when my eyes weren't right or feeling, that terrible car sickness. And
mm.
then when I got my glasses, it was literally like my brain sighed. Like,
Yeah.
like that's how it felt. It felt like I don't know, like I've never really smoked a lot of pot, but when I did, it was like that, you know, like that feeling that my brain just sighed from
Yeah.
having these glasses. So you think, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you look at it?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's you get like weird migraines and weird tensions
Mhm.
from the eyes not working together. There's three cranial nerves in your eyes, and so that's reasonably influential to your overall nervous system. That
Mm.
there's 12 cranial nerves, and three of them are coming from your eyes, and it's like if you can just make them like you say, go, this is nicer.
Yeah.
You think about how much neural tension that just relieves.
How much is migraine associated with that binocular vision not working?
Yeah, big time, big
Is
time.
it?
Yeah, the again they don't really know what the migraine is specifically.
Mm.
And the same with the migraine aura. Like it was before I went to Australia, University of I think it was Melbourne or New South Wales in Western Australia. They put in like $200,000 to try and figure it out, and we never heard anything. And
Wow.
and like you know, there's all these associations of migraines with bad health outcomes, but they still don't understand like what is it that creates a splitting headache,
Mm,
you know,
mm, mm,
you know,
mm.
and like what is it that creates these kaleidoscopes or static images or stars or snow or what's the other one? Little blind spots, and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and
yeah.
then like my cousin, like what causes his whole left arm to go completely numb. Um, he
Wow.
he he had a really fun nursing lecture when they said numbness down the left arm could be associated with a heart attack. He's like, oh, you know. It's like, oh no, that's just your migraine symptom. Thank goodness for that. Yeah, but yeah. But again, if you're reducing down that nervous tone, if you're not constantly, stretching that top eyebrow up to try and hold that eye upwards, you're not sort of tilting your head to the side to try and balance your eyes because it's easier over here. But if I go over there, my eyes are more prone to move apart. But if I go over here, well, then it's nice. So you're constantly putting strain down that one side of your neck, and then
I
you're
do that all the time.
yeah. Well, there's probably the reason why you got
Thanks.
got prism there, Katie.
I should be
stop,
wearing them.
just stop that eye twist and that
But
you know.
isn't it funny? Like, because I can remember when somebody mentioned that
Yeah,
about the head tilt.
yeah,
I look through all my school photographs and my
yeah,
head is always tipping to the left.
yeah, yeah. Me and David, he from Vivid Optometry, he picks out lots of people in public place. He had a video of Robert Kennedy, what is it, RF Kennedy Jr. the
Oh
other
yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah.
He was obviously getting absolutely grilled, but yeah, his eyes were darting and he kept having to tilt his head. And it was the same with Ray. What's her name? Ray Gunn. So
Yeah.
she has it was supposed to be an apology, but she didn't apologize. Video, and she's the same. She has her hair over one eye a lot of the time, and then she will like try to pull her hair out of the side of her face and straighten her head up, and then she straight away drops her head back down and kind of pulls her hair back over the eye, and it's just kind of,
Wow.
and she keeps trying to straighten it because I guess she was seeing herself in the video, so she must have been like, "Oh, my head's on, I should stand up," but then she'd talk and then it'd drop back down, and it's just like the it's the optometry, like, oh, that person's got one of these obliques is restricted, and funnily enough, it's the one that you're leaning away from. So if you're leaning to your right, it's the left one. If you're leaning to your left, it's the right one. Um, and then again, back to the woo woo. Interestingly, it's more commonly the right one. What's with that?
Yeah. So if it's the right one, you tilt to the left.
Yeah, yeah,
Is it?
yeah.
Can you do anything? Can you stretch or
um, you can. What can you do? Um, Prisms help, obviously,
yeah,
because they just like relax things.
yeah.
Um, you can work on your convergence and your um in and out reserves. So it's pretty hard to train vertically, but you can train your in and out fuel in the tank.
Mm.
But yeah, it's that one's a little bit anatomical. That muscle, unfortunately, it starts at the back, runs along the inner part of the eye socket, which is kind of like a pyramid on the inner part by the nose, and it comes around a little hook, and then it goes all the way over the back of the eyeball to pull it down, to pull
Mm.
it out. And yeah, unfortunately, there's kind of like gristle, if you will, along that, and so it doesn't slide properly. And so the two muscles are getting the same innervation, and so the one that's unrestricted, it is overacting, and so it's pulling the eye down and out, and then the other one's left being pulled
Mm.
up and out relatively, yeah, because
Maybe
the
you
bot
need to contact like that old Kennedy, get him on your podcast, a little chat.
yeah. Yeah, no, me and David have talked about talking about this stuff. So yeah, I think we were talking before we started about doing Zooms. I need to jack up. He's on in LA, so yeah, the time difference is not too bad. So we need to actually lock it in, get it in the calendars, and do it now that I'm a bit more settled in the practice here. I'll be able to go Saturday morning or Friday morning or something like that, and we can jack it up. And
Yeah.
yeah, he can tell me the lived experience of an optometrist fixing it himself and going, and then fixing it in so many different people. He gets people flying in from Canada, from India, to
Wow.
come to his practice to basically get prisms and a bit of vision training. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I think we'll wrap it up. Ryan, I could talk to you all night.
That's been fun, Katie. Yeah, it's one of those things that's like it's ending. There is the solutions there, but the implications and the crossovers are never ending. And
Mm,
like I said, it's the implications are far and wide, but then it's kind of like only part of the story. And especially
yeah,
when it comes to concussion, or it comes to mental illness, or it comes to neurodivergence, it's a tool that can help make that a bit easier.
yeah, yeah. And I think that it's being aware of that, and also the I'm very, very aware of the fads and trends.
Mm,
I've been gone through all of them, and then through when you recover, I don't know what your experience is of concussion. Like when you're actually recovering, you've got to be quite disciplined and militant with what you're choosing. Like you can't just like do keto for 5 minutes and think it's going to fix you,
yeah,
or think, oh, it's my gut health, you know, and it's going
yeah,
to fix me, or I've got new glasses and it's going to fix me. Like, yeah.
yeah. No, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Even though it would be great if it did, but it's not. It's like you say, it's this whole, I've used this analogy like it's like weaving a beautiful rug.
Mhm.
Like you just use all these tools to get better.
Absolutely. And that's where your
Yeah.
book's very cool. How you have integrated things. It's really cool, and I'm excited that how long to go?
So it's being launched on the 10th in the States and the 11th here.
Wonderful. No, it's gonna be cool.
Yeah, no, and it's I'm very blessed like to have you in it, and there's just been so many people that have helped, Ryan. Like it hasn't. And I said to someone the other day, like it's not my book.
Mhm.
It's like it's this tribe of people that have contributed to help other people. So I'm really grateful to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie.
All right, okay. Well, shall see you soon.
Yeah. Cheers.